7 insane camping horror tales that will haunt your nights. You'll never want to go again. The campfire crackled like it was alive, sending off sparks into the quickly darkening sky. Shadows danced, twisting and turning, whispering secrets that only the night could understand. This was no ordinary camping trip, it was a step into the unknown. Alice and her friends thought they were ready for an adventure. Little did they know, they were about to stumble into mysteries darker than the blackened woods surrounding them. As Alice peered into the forest, something moved beyond the trees. A glimpse of eyes, glinting like shards of glass. Was it just her imagination playing tricks? Panic swelled in her chest, but she shook it off. After all, they were just playing games, telling ghost stories late into the night, scoffing at the silly tales of campers that had gone missing over the years. But then came the first strange element, a whisper, barely audible, yet chilling. "Get out," it said, flowing through the air like a cold breeze but far more menacing. The friends exchanged uneasy glances, laughter dying like the fire's last embers. Their brave stories turned to nervous chuckles, but the shadows weren't done yet. Suddenly, the woods felt alive, like something was watching them, waiting. The trees creaked above, whispering secrets of the lost. The further they ventured into the wilderness, the more disconnected they felt from reality. One friend claimed to hear sounds, footsteps trailing them, unseen eyes lurking just beyond their reach. Other campers brushed them off as the raving of too much sugar or lack of sleep. But what if it was more? What if the stories were real? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As night deepened, the air turned thick with tension. The wind picked up, rattling the branches like 1,000 unseen fingers. Another whisper floated through the darkness, "You shouldn't be here." Heart pounding, Alice felt a chill creep up her spine. The group gathered closer, huddling against the growing unease. A pack of wild animals howled in the distance, adding to the primal fear wrapping around them. And just when they thought nothing could possibly get worse, a far-off scream shattered the silence, a haunting reminder of the dangers that lurked just beyond their light. What was that? Sarah gasped, her face drained of color. The laughter was gone. All that remained was the blaring reality that they were far from safe. Was this the infamous call of the woods, warning them of a fate too dreadful to bear? As they quickly debated what to do next, another shadow moved between the trees, lingering just long enough for Alice to lock eyes with it, a flash of something deeply inhuman and yet eerily familiar. The question lingered, were they the next chapter in a story written in blood? The night held its breath, but Alice felt the whisper of something terrible stirring just out of sight. What were the trees concealing? And who, or what, had just watched them? A sense of doom filled the air, thick and suffocating. The fire flickered one last time, and they knew they had to decide, stay or run. And with that, the tales of horror climaxed, leaving them teetering on the precipice of the unknown. The forest loomed larger as shadows lengthened. The flickering firelight cast shifting patterns, but they did little to illuminate the encroaching dread. We should go now," Alice stammered, her voice barely reaching above a whisper. A dark knot tugged at her stomach. There was something out there, stalking them, and she could feel it, the air pregnant with malice. But where to? "We can't just run into the woods," Mike protested, tremors creeping into his tone. The question hung heavy, unanswered. The night was impenetrable, a dark abyss threatening to swallow them whole if they took a single, wrong step. Before they could muster a response, the ground beneath them trembled, a low rumble that seemed to resonate from deep within the earth. It was like a warning, an echo of all those ghostly tales they joked about earlier, now rendered frighteningly real. Was the forest, with its gnarly branches and oppressive silence, alive? Alice's heart raced. "Guys, look!" Sarah's voice rang out, barely containing her terror. She pointed at the thick brush where shadows morphed and swayed. Something was moving in the dark, or rather, someone. A figure darted between the trees, quick and silent, like smoke slipping through their fingers. It couldn't be a person, could it? What was that? Did you see it? Sam, the skeptic, was now shaking. His bravado evaporated, leaving only raw fear behind. The rest nodded, silently gripping each other tighter, as the sense of reality began to splinter. Suddenly, the whisper returned, sharper now, cutting through the night. Leave or suffer, it clawed at Alice's mind, and for a moment, she wished she could shred her ears free of its haunting intonation. The others were frozen, eyes wide, breaths shallow. "Maybe it's just an echo from other campers," Mike tried to sound reassuring, but the doubt quivered in his words. They all knew that there were no other campers nearby, isolated. Their group had taken the more secluded path, aiming for the thrill of solitude untinged by the outside world. A low thud surged through the ground, followed by a soft rustling. Alice squinted, straining to catch a glimpse of whatever lurked just beyond the fire's feeble reach. Her skin prickled with the sense of being hunted. "We need to," she began, but her words were abruptly sliced by another scream, this time far closer. "Shut up!" yelled Sarah, her eyes darting nervously. But the unwelcome sound continued, a banshee-esque call cutting through the atmosphere. "We need to go now!" yelled Mike, panic tearing across his face. They all turned as one, eyes wide. As they stumbled backward, the ground cracked like a thunderclap, and suddenly the fire flickered out, plunging them into darkness. Their screams mingled, a panicked cacophony as they tried to grab hold of each other. In the pitch black, the unknown pressed against them. Then a soft glow emerged in the distance, faint, but discernible. A haunting silhouette backlit by the flickering light. There it was again, that figure. Closer now. What do we do?" Someone whimpered, voices tethered by fear and urgency. Alice squinted into the uncertain glow, heart thumping violently against her rib cage. The moment felt heavy, filled with unspoken possibilities. Could it be a way out, or something far more sinister? "Run!" Alice shouted, and the group lurched forward, propelled by the instinct to escape. But on their heels, there lay something ancient, and as they tore through the brambles, the whisper returned, insistent, "You can't hide forever." Time hung precariously as they raced into the trees. Hope battled with despair. Would they make it? And what awaited them in the heart of the night? The weight of the darkness crushed in, but before they could reach safety, the light glimmered again, illuminating the twisted branches. And there, at the center of it all, stood the figure, unmistakably human, yet distinctly wrong. What had they awakened? The answer loomed as the ground shook once more, and the chilling refrain wrapped around them like a noose: "You shouldn't be here." And so they ran. Unaware that the true horror was only just beginning. Would they discover the terrible truth behind the whispers, or would they become mere shadows drifting among the trees? They sprinted deeper into the trees, adrenaline fueling their limbs as branches clawed at them, scratchy fingers of the night. Alice led the way, heart pounding like a war drum, instinct screaming that danger was mere steps behind. Each thud of her foot against the earth echoed like a morbid countdown, each breath sharp and punctuated by the trepidation looming over them. "Where are we going?" Sarah gasped, her voice trembling. Panic and fear mingled into a suffocating blend that threatened to crush them. "Anywhere but here," Alice shouted, urgency enveloping her as they twisted and turned through the dense underbrush. The glow faded behind them, but the whispers clung, wrapping around like fog. "You can't hide," it taunted, echoing in the depths of their minds. Mike stumbled, his foot catching on a root, sending him tumbling to the ground with a yelp of pain. Without hesitation, Alice spun around, her heart racing. Get up. We can't stop. Just give me a second. He panted, brushing dirt from his arms as he struggled to stand. The others hesitated, knowing they couldn't leave him behind but fearful of the pursuing shadow they could feel in the air. Move. Sam urged, eyes darting around as if the darkness was alive, ready to swallow them whole. Anxiety spurred Alice into action. She reached down, grabbing Mike's arm, pulling him toward her. Let us go. They took off again, each footfall heavy with foreboding as they dashed through the tangled shadows. The forest seemed to close in around them, the trees bending and swaying like sentinels watching their every move. But just as they felt a semblance of coordination, the whisper returned, now closer, more malevolent. You can't run from your fate. Their pace quickened, but the sense of dread seeped deeper. Each rustle in the underbrush sent shivers racing up their spines, conjuring images of what was hunting them, a nightmarish specter lurking just out of sight. Alice felt as if madness was creeping in, her thoughts jumbled with anxiety. They burst into a small clearing, moonlight spilling across the shaded ground. The night's glow revealed eerie glimmers on the ground, remnants of what looked like bones. The sight sent a chill down Alice's spine. What is this? Sarah whispered, eyes wide with horror as she scanned the area. It was small but littered with the remains of it, twisted and gnarled. It was like a macabre playground, a testament to something unspeakable. Just keep moving. Alice urged, heart racing. As if fueled by their panic, the shadow behind them roared back, loud and primal, shaking the very ground beneath their feet. Go! They screamed, running to the other side, but the foreboding presence gathered strength, closing in. The whispers escalated to mockery, laughter echoing off the trees, chilling to the bone. You cannot escape what you do not understand. Just as they reached the edge of the clearing, their surroundings undulated before their terrified eyes. The forest felt like a living entity, twisting the reality around them, distorting paths constructed by fear. They weren't alone. Something was with them, something dark whose essence chilled the air. In the sudden chaos, Mike looked back, catching a glimpse of what stalked them. It's not human! He shouted, eyes wide with terror. Alice refused to look. Don't look back. But it was too late. They were too late. The reality of their situation slammed into them as they faltered at the edge of the dark, now realizing that to run further only took them deeper into madness. Silence fell over them, heavy and palpable. For a mere heartbeat, they stood still. Then came the whisper again, chilling and precise. Now you will know what awaited them beyond that embrace of darkness. Was there truly a way back to reality, or had they stepped into a nightmare where there was no return? As their breaths quickened and shadows swirled around them, they found themselves at a cliff's edge. Should they leap into the abyss or turn to face the terror that pursued them? The moment hung, breathless, as they grappled with the haunting truth: their fight was only beginning. What darkness lay ahead in the depths of the woods, waiting to reveal its true nature? The air thickened with the weight of their fear, pressing in on them from all sides. They stood at the precipice, hearts racing as they stared into the abyss. The darkness seemed alive, it pulsated, breathing in unison with their panicked breaths. Alice clenched her fists, mind racing. We can't stay here, she whispered, already knowing their options were dwindling. Do we jump? Sarah's voice cracked, the desperation palpable in her tone. Her wide eyes trembled, scanning the gloom as if it might conjure a path back to safety. No. Alice shot back. We face it head-on. The whispers climbed in intensity, echoing through their minds like a sinister melody. You are lost, it sang, melodic yet dissonant, a cruel joke entwined in every syllable. With a final deep breath, Alice broke the trance, turning towards the encroaching darkness. On 3, she said. 1, 2, 3. They surged into the blackness together, hearts pounding like war drums. As they plunged into the unknown, the world dropped away. It was disorienting, shadows swirling around them in a wild dance. Sweat dripped down Alice's forehead, mingling with the forest's chill. Then, ahead, did she see something? A flicker of movement, a shift among the trees. Panic clawed at her throat. "This way!" she shouted, forcing her legs to move toward the shape. But was it real? The shadows twisted, curling back into themselves like a spring coiling tighter. Mike's cries faded as the darkness swallowed them whole, drowning out their panic and horror in its relentless embrace. Suddenly, they stumbled into another clearing, but this was different. A cold, sickening presence enveloped them. It was a grotesque gathering. Figures cloaked in shadows stood around what appeared to be an altar, their forms indistinct but hauntingly familiar in the way they moved. "Is that?" Sam froze, eyes locked on what lay at the center. A flickering light danced around a makeshift pedestal, illuminating twisted carvings that glimmered unnaturally under the moonlight. Bones, much like those they'd seen earlier, were arranged around it, each one a grim tribute to some unholy ritual. The figures turned slowly, their faces obscured in the twilight. "You shouldn't have come here," one rasped, their voice echoing like an ominous thunderclap in the night. Alice's heart dropped. "What are you?" The whispering chorus grew louder, thickening the air like a heavy mist. "We are the lost," another voice said, its tone almost melodic but twisted with malice. "And you will join us." They turned to flee, but the shadows morphed, thickening into a solid wall. The figures closed in, their movements a choreographed nightmare. "You cannot escape your fate. You will know, you will learn." Alice recoiled, her mind racing. They had stepped into something ancient, something that devoured the very essence of life. "Mike! Sarah!" she yelled, searching for her friends in the growing panic. She could feel their presence slipping, like grains of sand through her fingers. "We need to push through. Now!" But as she made a move, the earth beneath them trembled and split, revealing a dark gaping maw. "Join us!" The whispers grew frantic, a cacophony of despair, an invitation and a warning. In that moment, something primal awakened within Alice. With a surge of raw determination, she lunged forward, ready to face whatever awaited her in the darkness. "Follow me." As they leaped toward the unknown, a horrifying realization ripped through her. What have we awakened? And just as the shadows surged to consume them, the ground erupted beneath their feet, sending them tumbling into the void. What awaited them on the other side? Did they plunge into a nightmarish existence or find a way to rewrite their fate? The darkness resonated with sinister laughter, echoing as they spiraled deeper into terror, leaving their only hope cloaked in shadows. Falling felt endless. Time twisted and stretched as Alice and her friends hurtled through the darkness, screaming and gasping. The cacophony of their voices mixed with the ominous whispers swirling around them. "Hold on," she shouted above the noise, gripping Sarah's arm desperately. Beneath them, the void whispered promises, dark, insidious promises that enticed and repulsed all at once. Then, they hit something solid, crashing onto a ground that felt alive. A pulse thumped beneath their bodies, and they rolled apart in shock, hearts pounding like machine guns. Adrenaline surged through Alice's veins as she sat up, blinking in confusion. What surrounded them was surreal. Flickering lights cast precarious shadows among a landscape that felt both familiar and alien. Trees twisted like skeletal hands reaching for the night sky, their bark gnarled and rippling. Ethereal mist swirled at their feet, curling around their ankles like a serpent ready to strike. "Is everyone okay?" Mike's voice trembled, crude like crushed glass. "Yeah, just shaken," Sam said, pushing himself upright and brushing leaves from his jacket. "But where the hell are we?" Alice looked around, her heart hammering as dread draped over them. "It's not just the darkness. It feels wrong." With a shared, uneasy glance, they began to rise, instinctively gathering closer. The whispers had quieted, but the air thickened, almost suffocating. Each breath was steeped in an otherworldly chill that sent shivers skittering down Alice's spine. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed through the air. They froze, hearts racing as the sound of laughter, low and mocking, slithered through the stillness. The figures they had fled now emerged from the shadows. Cloaked and sinister, their outlines were more defined, the moonlight illuminated their faces, timeless and eerily apathetic. "You've crossed the threshold," one of them hissed, voice like nails on a chalkboard. "You are bound to us now." Frantically, Alice scanned the group, her mind racing. "What do you want?" "We seek companionship in darkness," another figure intoned, stepping forward. Their featureless face twisted into a smile that revealed rows of jagged teeth, a sight that stole the warmth from her bones. "We know what you fear. You have awakened us," it continued, as its voice drew closer, sending shards of ice down Alice's back. "You are our guests or our prey." The air grew tighter, constricting around their throats. Alice felt her blood run cold. "Run!" Mike shouted suddenly, snapping Alice from her trance. Without thinking, they dashed into the forest, hearts pounding like thunder as branches scratched at their skin like the fingers of the undead. Behind them, the laughter of the figures echoed like a taunt. "You cannot flee what you have invited." Alice's breath came in ragged gasps as they stumbled deeper into the twisted trees. But then, she tripped, feeling the ground beneath shift as she fell into another clearing. It was different inside, a circle formed by ancient stones, vibrant symbols danced with energy, illuminating the scene with a ghostly light. In the center stood an altar, but unlike the first, this one pulsed with a heartbeat. She felt its rhythm seep into her veins, anchoring her in a way she couldn't comprehend. "What's happening?" Sam panted, glancing at her in sheer panic. "I don't know," Alice cried, trembling. "But we can't let them catch us." Then, above the altar, a figure emerged from the shadows. It glowed with otherworldly radiance, a stark contrast to the male-facing forms they had seen before. "You must choose, join us for eternity, or face the darkness alone," it proclaimed, voice like honey mixed with venom. Alice's heart raced. As tension gripped her, realization dawned: they had awakened something primal, but now they stood at a crossroads. What choice would they make? Would they fight the darkness and risk it all, or surrender to a fate they didn't fully understand? Alice felt the heavy weight of expectation. She could feel it in her bones. Time was slipping away. Together? She breathed, looking at her friends. Knowing whatever came next would change everything. But the moment stretched and the whispers crept closer, reminding her of the deal that loomed before them. The figure floating above the altar flickered like a flame caught in a gust of wind. Its eyes, pools of starlit void, fixed on Alice and her friends. Time felt suspended, the air saturated with electric tension as they exchanged glances, each face reflecting fear and determination. "Join us for eternity," it repeated, a haunting echo lacing through the clearing. "Why should we trust you?" Mike finally said, his voice steadier than he felt. "What does it even mean? What happens if we refuse?" The glowing figure leaned closer, a twisted smile cracking across its face. "Refusal carries weight, a price to be paid in blood and shadow." Its voice dripped with temptation, a siren call that set Alice's teeth on edge. The whispers from the trees danced around her, taunting her very resolve. Alice shook her head, trying to clear the confusion. "No. We didn't come here to join anything. We just want to go home." The figure seemed momentarily taken aback, an expression akin to amusement flickering over its ethereal features. "Ah, the naive hope of forgetting," it said, the laughter of unseen shadows rising and crawling back into the night. "But your journey has only begun. The choices you make now will carve your paths through the dark." Just then, a shudder rocked the ground beneath them as branches creaked and groaned, rich with malcontent. The other figures shuffled closer, drawn like moths to a flickering flame. They shimmered ominously, their jagged teeth glinting like knives in the shadows. "We want to know," Sarah shouted, desperation tipping her voice into a squeak. "What's south this place? Who are you really?" The glowing entity rose higher, illuminating the clearing in an alien glow, revealing carvings etched into the stones, an ancient script pulsating with a rhythm akin to a heartbeat. This is a sacred junction, a battleground of wills. We are the guardians of choices made in the darkness. Guardians? Sam scoffed, backing away. Sounds like you're more like jailers. Bold words from one who knows not the rope that binds, hissed one of the cloaked figures, fingers curling like sinister vines. Alice felt the pulse from the altar reverberate through her. It was enchanting yet terrifying, tugging at something deep inside her. What if we don't choose? She asked, feeling the weight of their collective fear. What will you do to us? The figure's eyes glowed brighter, casting vivid reflections in the frightened eyes of her friends. Choices shape reality. To abstain is to surrender to the void of fate worse than mere death. In darkness, your true selves will be revealed. Their hearts thudded heavily as an unsettling silence fell over them, knotting their stomachs. Alice could feel the ground tremble beneath her. It was alive. Quaking like the very essence of dread. Just then, a sudden crash echoed from the treetops, fracturing the tension. Alice whirled around. A mass of black shapes surged into the clearing, eyes glowing with fury, figures cloaked in darkness, rushing toward them like ravenous wolves. Run! She screamed, pulling at Sarah's hand, panic igniting her instincts. They bolted, racing through the jagged stones, the altar's pulsing glow shrinking behind them, shadows chasing them with malevolent glee. Breathless, they weaved through the trees, losing all sense of direction as branches clawed at their skin, the chilling whispers sounding off behind them, echoing their fear. You can't escape. They taunted. Alice's heart raced faster than her feet, a fire igniting within her. She turned a corner and skidded to a stop, wide-eyed and horrified by what lay ahead, a vast chasm, steep and dark. No! She gasped, looking back at her friends, desperation squeezing her heart. What now? The shadows grew closer, a suffocating wave of darkness beckoning them back. She could almost feel their cold breath upon her. Jump! Mike yelled, taking a step toward the edge. We have to. With terror gripping her, Alice glanced at the yawning abyss, the depths unknown and full of raw possibility. There was no time to think. She took a deep breath, but as she prepared to leap, the ground began to tremble again, a violent shudder that threatened to swallow them whole. Choose. Now. The radiant figure's voice pierced through the chaos, sending chills down Alice's spine. Would they risk everything and jump, or would they be devoured by the darkness behind them? Every second felt like an eternity. The choice loomed larger than ever, but the whispers in the dark grew louder. What awaited them on the other side? Were they prepared for whatever would emerge? Alice felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her like a boulder. The abyss yawned before them, inviting yet terrifying. She looked into her friends' faces. The fear mirrored back was palpable. Mike, emboldened by desperation, stepped closer to the edge, the wind whipping through his hair like a warning. Trust me, we can't let them catch us. He shouted, voice hoarse with urgency. The shadowy figures loomed behind them, a wave of darkness surging forward. Alice's heart raced as she felt the cold tendrils of fear creeping into her mind. The whispers grew louder, swirling around her like a tempest. Join us, they echoed, each syllable a claw raking across her sanity. Alice closed her eyes, grappling with a choice that felt like it could shatter her world. She could almost hear the ghastly laughter of the glowing figure. You think you control your fate? But deep down, something raw and steadfast raged against that invitation, an instinct to fight, to survive. Jump! Sarah screamed, tears brimming in her eyes. Alice, now! The shadows surged, hungry for their fear. She could see the outline of those horrific figures, their twisted forms lurching forward, jagged teeth glinting in the fractured moonlight. It twisted her stomach, a mix of dread and adrenaline igniting something within her. There was no more time to think. Alice grasped Sarah's hand and nodded. Okay. On 3. She inhaled sharply, her pulse racing as she counted. 1, 2, but before she could say 3, the ground quaked violently again. This time, a rumble erupted from the chasm, shaking the very air around them. The darkness flickered with an eerie light, revealing glimpses of unearthly shapes below, writhing as if the abyss itself was alive hungry. 3. Alice exclaimed, taking a leap of faith. She pulled Sarah with her into the darkness. The freefall felt eternal, gravity's grip wrenching their stomachs into knots. Just as they plunged into the unknown, an ear-splitting wail erupted from above. Mike screamed, the sound a stark contrast to the chaotic rush of wind enveloping them. They hit something solid, an unseen surface that jarred their bones and knocked the breath from their lungs. Gasping, Alice scrambled to her feet, blinking against the sudden darkness. "Where are we?" Sarah panted, her voice laced with panic as they turned in circles, trying to make sense of their new surroundings. The air was thick, heavy with a musty scent of decay that tugged at Alice's sanity. A glow began to flicker ahead. Shadows danced against the walls of rock, and distant echoes whispered threats in their ears. Alice squinted, trying to discern her surroundings, but it felt like they had stumbled into a rock-strewn cave, alive with sinister movement. "What if we just jumped into some monster's lair?" Mike said, breathless, his eyes wide with realization. But before Alice could answer, the ground shook again, louder this time. They dashed toward the light, each step echoing against the stone, urgency propelling them forward. The whispers morphed into laughter, curling around them with malicious intent. "You thought you could escape? Why won't they leave us alone?" Sarah whimpered, clutching Alice's arm. Drawing closer to the flickering glow, the reality hit her, the source. It was another altar, similar to the one in the clearing, marked by the same ancient script that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. As they approached, the glow revealed twisted figures encircling the platform. These were different bodies, shrouded in shadow, faces blank and hollowed. "They've made their choice," one murmured, the voice echoing like distant thunder. Alice froze, horror chilling her blood. "What do you mean? Choice?" She gasped, her breath catching as realizations clawed at her mind. The figures turned towards them, their eyes hollow voids. "You can't escape the choice. The dark knows what you fear most." Senses heightened, Alice sensed the darkness closing in around them once more. The oppressive weight mounted, threatening to crush them as dread pooled in her stomach. What if we don't choose?" She whispered, the weight of that question hanging heavily in the air. The figures froze, eyes shimmering in a powerful gaze. "Then it chooses for you." As the walls of the cavern began to tremble and the whispers grew louder, Alice's heart raced. What was lurking just beyond the light? The choice she thought she'd escaped had merely morphed into a new terror. What awaited them next? And just as it seemed they would be swept into the abyss within, a figure emerged, wrapped in blinding light, raising a hand. "Find your truth, hold on to it, or lose everything." It spoke, voice echoing with the certainty of impending doom. What awaited them if they could not find their truth? Time stretched again, and fear coiled tightly around their hearts like a serpent, ready to strike. The blinding light was disorienting, casting stark shadows across the cave walls that danced like wraiths. Alice squinted against the brilliance, heart pounding in her chest. This figure, this beacon, stood before them like a guardian, radiating authority. A sense of hope mingled with confusion and dread. "Who are you?" Mike choked out, his voice a thin thread weaving through the oppressive air. The figure lowered its hand slowly, the glow dimming slightly to reveal a face. Faces, in fact many of them merged, shifting like clouds. Each gaze held a distinct sorrow that cut through the haze of fear. "I am the Keeper," it finally said, voice resonating like a bell, echoing in every crevice of the cave. "And I can help you, but the truth is not easy to bear." Alice glanced at Sarah, her brow furrowed in worry. "What truth?" The Keeper smiled, though it looked more like an echo of pain. "You each harbor secrets deep within, fears that tether you to the darkness. To survive, you must confront what lies within. Only then can the shadows be banished. What does that even mean? Sarah cried, the tremor in her voice cutting through the heavy silence. Time is short, and the darkness hungers, the keeper warned, urgency propelling its words. You will each face a vision, a moment that defines you. Confront it together, or you will be lost forever. Suddenly, the air thickened like syrup as the flickering glow consumed them. Alice felt a pull, a force that tore away her will. She clutched at Sarah, but it was futile. They were separated, forcibly drawn into a swirling vortex of light and shadow. Alice's surroundings morphed into a chaotic scene. She stood in the middle of an intersection, known yet foreign. The familiar clamor of street sounds echoed around her, but she felt detached, like a ghost watching herself from afar. There was a younger version of herself at the corner, lost and alone, eyes darting as if avoiding impending danger. "Run! You can't stay here!" She screamed, but her voice echoed back at her, hollow and without effect. The younger Alice didn't seem to hear her. Instead, she remained frozen, paralyzed by fear. "You have to choose," a voice whispered in her ear, low and deceivingly soothing. "What will you do? Will you abandon her?" "No!" Alice cried, feeling despair clawing at her throat. "I want to leave her." But the shadows began to creep in, cold and suffocating. The chaos intensified as figures emerged, faceless entities rotting with malice, closing in on her younger self. Alice felt her heart race, an acute pain piercing through the fog of fear. She remembered the loneliness, the isolation. She understood the choice now. The keeper's voice echoed in her mind. Confronted together. Suddenly, Sarah appeared beside her, panting heavily. "What is this place?" she shouted above the cacophony. "We need to help her." The younger Alice was backing away, eyes wide and searching for an escape. "I can't do this," she cried, and the despair laced her voice like poison. "Together!" Alice shouted, gripping Sarah's hand tightly. "We have to reach her." They united their strength, stepping forward into the whirlwind, determined to save who they once were. The shadows surged, but with each step, the warmth of hope ignited within them, pushing against the cold tendrils of fear. As they reached for the younger Alice, their fingers brushing against her ethereal form, time warped again. Reality shattered and refracted. They were pulled back into the cave, landing hard on the rocky floor. But that was not the end. The keeper's presence lingered, its expression a mixture of dread and anticipation. "This was just the beginning. Your truths await, hidden beneath layers of shadows. Will you face them, or will the darkness consume you?" As Alice and Sarah steadied themselves, panting and disoriented, they realized that what they faced was far graver than they could imagine. The cavern trembled again, walls groaning as the whispers crescendoed into a deafening roar. It felt as if the abyss was laughing, taunting them with the darkness they had yet to confront. The shadowy figures drawn to them began to swirl around, more aggressive now, their hollow eyes reflecting Alice's own fears. "Will you run, or will you fight?" the keeper implored, its voice cracking under the pressure of the darkness closing in around them. With their backs against the wall, the weight of their choices pressed down on them like never before. What revelations awaited them? And could they survive this harrowing test of truth before the shadows claimed them once and for all? The air crackled with uncertainty as they braced themselves against the encroaching darkness, terrified yet resolute. What lay ahead, and would they manage to confront the truth that might just save them all? The darkness closed in like a tightening noose, the shadows twisting and writhing, manifesting into grotesque shapes that leered at Alice and Sarah. Each breath became a battle, heavy with the stink of despair and regret. Alice's palms were slick with sweat. She could feel Sarah's fingers trembling in her grasp, a silent plea for strength as they stood together against the onslaught. "Face your fears," the keeper's voice resonated, a sharp edge cutting through the chaos. "Only then can you hope to escape." "What does that even mean?" Alice shouted, desperate for clarity. The air was thick with anticipation, almost alive, whispering secrets in a language they couldn't decode. Before she could gather her thoughts, the shadows shifted again, forming a path that led deeper into the cave's recesses. "Choose," the keeper's voice echoed. "To confront, or to be consumed. Are we ready for this?" Sarah's eyes were wide, glistening with unshed tears. "What if we can't handle it? What if we lose ourselves?" "We can't afford to think like that," Alice replied, steeling herself. "It's either that or let them take us." With a shared nod, they stepped forward into the darkness, the coldness prickling their skin. The shadows twisted around them, each one a memory in disguise. A cacophony of voices swirled in the air, some familiar, echoing their deepest insecurities, while others were raw and foreign, scraping against their minds like nails on a chalkboard. Suddenly, a figure lunged from the darkness, a reflection of Alice's past, a version of herself shrouded in turmoil, radiating self-doubt. "You think you're stronger than me?" It sneered, a cruel smile stretching across its face. "You're just running from the truth." "No," Alice gasped, shaking her head. "That's not who I am anymore." "Then prove it." The dark reflection taunted, moving closer, eyes glinting with malice. "Face what you fear most." As the figure advanced, memories flooded Alice's mind, isolated moments of failure, a haunting melody of betrayal echoing in her ears. She felt her resolve wavering, her heart racing with terror. "No, I did overcome these. I am more than my past," she shouted, pushing against the overwhelming tide of despair. Meanwhile, Sarah faced her own specter, a distortion of vulnerabilities that mocked her scars and fears. "You can't escape who you truly are," it hissed, weaving through her memories of inadequacy and isolation. "Yes, I can," Sarah cried, panic clawing at her throat. "I'm not that person anymore." With a burst of energy, they both surged forward, reaching toward their darker selves in a bold act of defiance. Together. Their voices united, a passionate proclamation echoing down the cavern walls. As their outstretched hands met the shadows, an explosion of light blinded them. The dark figures screamed, twisting and contorting, disintegrating like smoke in the wind. The cavern trembled violently, a cacophony of shattering silence filling the air. Panting and trembling, Alice and Sarah stumbled back, collapsing onto the cold stone floor, hearts racing in a strange harmony. The keeper loomed, its faces flickering in and out of focus, a solemn expression gracing its many features. "You've taken the first step," it intoned, a mix of admiration and foreboding in its voice. "But the shadows aren't finished with you yet." Suddenly, the cave darkened again, the atmosphere shifting. The ground began to shake, sending ripples of panic shooting through their bodies. "What now?" Mike's voice quaked as he joined them, eyes wide with terror. "More truths await," the keeper warned, gaze piercing into their souls. "Can you endure the next confrontation? Or will this darkness swallow you whole?" The air tingled with tension, every nerve ending firing as they braced for what lay ahead. The keeper stepped back, merging into the shadows with an enigmatic smile. What new trials awaited them? And with their resolve tested, could Alice and Sarah summon the strength they needed to continue? The shadows swarmed like a dark tide, threatening to drown Alice and her friends in a sea of fear. Each tremor of the earth sent fresh waves of dread coursing through them. Alice's mind raced, desperation clawing at her throat. They had already faced so much, and yet, here they were, teetering on the edge of an even darker abyss. "Stay close," Alice shouted. Each command felt like a charge against the oppressive void surrounding them. The keeper's voice echoed in her mind, urging them to confront their truths. But what did that truly mean? Would exposing themselves bring salvation or lead deeper into treachery? A figure emerged from the darkness, thrumming with quiet menace. It was neither a reflection of Alice nor of Sarah. This shape felt more like a collective manifestation of their fears. "You cannot escape," it taunted, voice a choir of whispers. "You've only begun to peel back the layers of your true selves. Let us show it we aren't afraid." Mike yelled, his bravado ringing hollow against the overwhelming dread. But Alice could see the tremor in his hands, the wild glint of uncertainty in his eyes. At that moment, the darkness lunged. It clawed at them with icy fingers, gripping tight around their hearts. Now! Face it together! Alice shouted, needing to believe their bond would protect them. They stood firm, hands clasped tightly. Each took a deep breath, steeling themselves as they faced the dark figure. "I choose to see you," Alice cried, and to her surprise, the writhing mass faltered, as if her declaration had carved a crack in the darkness. "You're just a part of me. You don't control me." Her heart raced, feeling the words echo within the shadows. The figure faltered again, revealing glimpses of vulnerability intertwined with anger. "You think it's that simple? You've hidden away the pain. You think denying us will set you free?" "No!" Sarah shouted, pushing against the encroaching darkness. "We embrace our shadows. You can't intimidate us anymore." As they spoke, the air thickened with resolve. An explosion of energy flared between them, illuminating the darkness, revealing the dark reflection for what it really was, a tapestry of pain that had long been ignored. They could either be bound by it or integrate it, stepping into a fuller understanding of who they were. With each defiant word, the memories surged forward, no longer distorted but swathed in clarity, a testament to how far they had come. They transformed from a weakness into a strength, fueling the light within them. "Together!" Alice shouted once more, and the shadows shrieked, recoiling from the purity of their unified spirit. In a blinding flash, the darkness exploded outward like a storm being shattered. The shadows scattered into nothingness, and the figures that had once loomed large disintegrated like smoke in sunlight. Breathless, Alice stumbled forward as the echoes of the past faded. Standing in the cavernous center, she felt the weight lift, leaving sweetness in its wake, a mere echo of the chaos before. "Did we do it?" she asked, heart still racing. The keeper re-emerged, glowing with a warm light, its many faces reflecting a myriad of emotions: relief, pride, and something akin to hope. "You have faced but one truth. But now you will find the resolve to carve your own path." The cavern began to shift, the walls seemingly ebbing and flowing like tides receding from shore. The air filled with renewal, washing over Alice and her friends, reshaping their surroundings into something vibrant and alive. "Look," Mike said, eyes wide as he pointed to a new opening bathed in light. It beckoned them with promises of warmth and safety. As they stepped toward freedom, hand in hand, they realized lurking darkness no longer governed them. They had transformed dread into strength, acceptance into liberation. With one final glance back at the keeper, Alice felt gratitude swell in her heart. "Thank you for showing us the way," she whispered. The keeper's voice reverberated softly against the now warm stone walls. "You are marked not by the shadows you faced, but by the light you choose to embrace." And as Alice stepped into the light, she felt a surge of renewed purpose. They had ventured through the darkness of the woods, faced the haunting, and emerged better, stronger. Together, they had forged their future, one of courage, unity, and a promise to never lose themselves in the dark again. They stepped out into a new dawn, ready to embrace the world beyond and the adventures that awaited. As the sun broke across the horizon, an urgent weight settled within Alice's chest. This journey was only the beginning. Now, dear friends, don't let this haunting tale stop here. You need to subscribe right now for more spine-chilling stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed this channel's algorithm and help us reach more thrilling storytellers just like you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and wild theories about Alice and her friend's fate. And don't wait even one more second to share this video. Send it to at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means the world. Let us keep this community alive.